Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Through a Therapist's Eyes. This is the introduction for our guest, Mr. Daniel Gasser. I wake up and have no idea where I am. I'm looking around, trying to orient myself. My head is hurting. I lift my head and hope no one recognizes me as I try to figure out what happened this time. I'm lying in a corner in a side street. I slowly start to realize what must have happened. Like any other evening after work, I had a drink or two with my friends and colleagues. But somewhere, somehow, it turned from a quick, fun evening to me ending up in the same insane place. I can't remember clearly exactly how it all happened again, but I know it has. I'm in a daze. I'm compounded by headache and confusion. How did I get here? My friends have long gone home. Why did it happen again? I knew something had to change. That is how this journey began as a coach, and now he has helped men all over the planet to become free from booze with the same method that he himself has mastered. So we are going to have an awesome conversation this week, and probably, possibly next week, guys, with Daniel Gasser. Welcome to Through a Therapist's Eyes, Daniel. How are
Hi,
you?
Chris.
Yeah,
I'm good. I'm good.
yeah.
It's good to
I,
be here.
uh, we're gonna do a current event here in a moment, but I gotta tell you, we were just talking off the mics, and so I'm looking forward to this conversation because it came from find you, and thank you publicly for finding me on LinkedIn. That was pretty cool, and I checked you out, did some Google searching and stuff, and I think our conversation is going to be super fun because and Daniel confirmed, he's like, I think we're going to disagree constantly, but that was in response to me saying I don't think we're going to find ourselves disagreeing much, actually. So I guess here we go on the ride, right, sir?
Yeah, we disagree to agree or something like that.
I hate that phrase. We agree to disagree. Nah,
Yeah, no, it's
we
gonna be
will
fun.
find our way to some conclusions tonight, I am sure. But this is going to be all about alcohol and drug addictions in a different kind of conversation than what we've had on the show before. Heads up, Neil, after we do the current event, I forgot to do it. If you could help me out, and I just realized right now, get a list of the addiction shows that we've done, the episodes, and that will help to frame this up because we've talked about addiction on this show several times, and this is going to be different because it's all about like kind of this misunderstanding and controversy sort of wrapped around the disease model that we've talked about. We'll talk about that a lot, and then we'll talk about recovery and different factors with recovery and Daniel, what your coaching style is and what you do with coaching. First of all, I want to say like it's awesome to talk to people that are also working with people that are still out there struggling and frankly dying from drug and alcohol addictions. It is one of the um, shoot. I think I could say it's one of the more deadly things that we deal with in my field of mental health and substance abuse. So thank you really for what you're doing online and what you do coaching.
Yeah. It's like if you overcome such things that there is this urge that you have to help others. I know that from other people who have overcome things and they can't just go on with their normal lives anymore. I never meant to be a coach. I don't want to be a coach. I hate this word actually. But it's coaching people. It's like in sports, you coach the sport. And if it helps even one single man on the planet, I'll
Yeah,
do it.
absolutely. So let me get my housekeeping out of the way. This is Through a Therapist's Eyes, and I am a therapist since 1995. Got the book out, Rediscovering Emotions and Becoming Your Best Self. Like to say this is where you get personal insights directly from a therapist. This episode and next, I think I can say you get episode or insights directly from a coach as well, in your own home and personal time in your car. So see the world through the lens of a therapist. Be aware it's not the delivery of therapy services in any way. Help us out around the world. 5-star reviews are awesome. If you must give us a 4, all right, if you must. But Apple iTunes, you can write the reviews on there. That helps us a lot too. Contact at throughatherapist'seyes.com of how to interact with us. We're not doing the Facebook Live because we're doing this on Zoom. Our gentleman, Mr. Gasser, is actually in Switzerland, by the way. So halfway around the world. I think that's pretty stupid cool. Um, Daniel, I like to say on the show in the beginning every time, this is the human emotional experience, and we are going to endeavor to figure this out together. And I think this show particularly is pretty poignant that way. Got a current event that I want to cover though. Neil, did you get a chance to look this stuff up? Because I think that you said, "Wow, I didn't even hear anything about this current event with Jalen Walker."
Yeah, no, I did. I had heard about it. I just
Yeah,
hadn't had a chance to do anything with it yet because I want to make sure that I understood what happened, what's going on. I didn't want to
yeah.
assume. So yeah, that's what I hadn't really taken the time to dive in to see what the situation was.
Well, yeah, it's crazy because and Daniel, you chime in whenever you want to because I think that your perspective from Switzerland might be very interesting. From a
Sure.
genuine bona fide European, right? So this is yet another police shooting event that we've had, which we've had several of them in the states and all. Um, First I want to say I really support the police. They have a super difficult job. It's really ridiculously tough what they do and what they're dealing with in the very serious and dangerous situations that they have. They need support for their mental health, and they need support for their training in a mental health perspective and in all the debriefing that they do. So, Neil, the facts that I saw seems to be car chase. Let's just pause right there. You remember us talking about a chase situation? You ever remember us talking about that, Neil?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
physical change it puts on the police officers or the first responders when you're chasing, you're breathing faster, heavier, your adrenaline's kicked, your awareness is heightened, but you're also a little bit more edgy, more your rationale is going to be a little bit off.
Your rationale's almost gone. It's your amygdala fires and you got all these chemicals blowing through your body like adrenaline, cortisol, cortisone. Like you can't think because your body is in a fight or flight survival mode to the point that you could pick up a car. Like remember that, guys, and we've talked about this before. So here we go, yet another time where there's a car chase. I don't know, some equipment they notice, and they're checking him out. And then now, while being in this chase, whether it I don't know if it was fast or slow, but shots came out of the car. So they observe the shots. The car stops. He gets out of the car with a full black mask on, and takes off running down the street. And then during the run, evidently he turns around, and there's a massive police shooting. 12 officers evidently involved. 8 of them shot and discharged their weapons, with arguably excessive shots firing, like 60 rounds of them hit Jalen. And there was also a loaded handgun that was found in his car, with a ring and the clip taken out. But this has caused a major uproar. I don't even know what city this was in. I don't think Chicago was
Akron, Ohio.
Akron, Ohio. That's right. And Daniel, I mean, we just had this whole thing happen with another major shooting in a Fourth of July celebration at city streets in Chicago. So this just seems like a lot that's going on. Yeah, you took your mic off. I'm curious what you think, Daniel.
It's it's a very very delicate topic because
Yeah.
in Europe, especially in Switzerland, we have this militia army. So every single man is basically armed, but we never have. I don't know why, frankly. It's very sad, but we never have this kind of issues, and we always hear from the states like these school shootings or this car chasing or people committing suicide through the police, and we're always like amazed, like what the hell is going on over there?
Really? Yeah.
How do you deal with that? How it's still going on, and how this whole weapons discussions you have all the time. I mean, you frankly speaking, you're deeply divided on that topic,
Right.
and it's I think personally, this is not Europe's opinion, but my opinion personally, that this does a lot of harm to your country, and you ought to find a solution to this. I don't know the solution, but
Yeah.
you really need to find a solution to this whole weapon thing because it's horrible. It's
Yeah.
just horrible.
It is.
I
It
mean,
is beyond traumatic.
and police officer getting shot by some, sorry to say, by some weirdo, or I don't know what's wrong with the guy. I don't know. If
Yeah.
in Europe someone gets shot to death by police, it's a huge thing. This is never happening, and the police is actually blamed, and there is investigations going on why this could have happened. If police shoot someone in the leg to stop him, okay, fine, that's their job. But if they shoot him to death, it really must be some good reason why this could have happened. And in the States, it seems to us that it's almost every day,
Mm.
which, yeah, it's really sad. It makes me sad.
That is fascinating. Yeah. Yeah, I just want to highlight. I mean, I'm curious. The differences are kind of interesting, but I'm just highlighting the need for an understanding that when you're in the chase scenario, a potential criminal or suspect is running, and you're kind of going after him, doing your job. Like you get so elevated in your emotion, and your amygdala just takes over, and it's like a phrase, scared brain, and the thinking goes offline. It's just it is something, and it happens just far too much. So we're with the police officers and Jalen's family and all those that knew him. It's yet again a traumatic reality that people will have a lot of healing to do from as well with the Fourth of July shootings, and um, we're not too far away from the other mass shooting. I mean, we've had a couple of slew of them in the most recent times. So yeah, we all need to come together and heal and recover. And as you say, Daniel, figure out long-term solutions to get this thing decreased and de-elevated, because it is pretty divisive. So let's move on to what we're talking about. Any other thoughts, Neil, or any comments?
Oh, I'm sure I have a lot of
Yeah.
comments, but I think two
Yeah.
things come from this. Is one, you talked about the police in those situations, and their brains are firing, and they're in a. But then you also had Jalen, who for whatever reason he was there. His thought process was, why are you running from the cops? Why are you, all that? There's a lot of stuff that he got himself worked up, and he didn't comply. He didn't have the right rationale. So there's both sides to it of him and the cops being in this situation that take a deep breath, kind of calm down. I think one of the biggest issues overall, working on the show with you, everything, the biggest problem in America to me is mental health. There's a lot of mental health issues that I think from some of the research, a lot of the European countries have a different mentality on how to handle mental health, how to process things. There's a different thought process between America and our way that we handle things and the way Europeans do it. And I think that's one of the huge differences. And I'm saying Europeans are better about handling their mental health. They take their breaks. They do the self-care. They do the things that they need to do. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Daniel, but I've seen more of that versus America's overly stressed, overly need to have all their information, need to have all the stuff, feed me, kind of like mentality, and then they just don't know how to process it. They don't take those breaks. So that's my take on it
Yeah.
as a
Yeah,
non-trained person.
I think I see the United States as a country, and again, this is not Europe's opinion. This is my personal opinion. Like a teenager, as a country, you're very young. My family has a house up in the mountain that's older than the States.
Yeah. Wow.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like it's crazy, and you're behaving like a teenager as a country. And Europe is, as said before, it's very old, so maybe that's the reason why we're handling these things a little bit different. But we have also mental health issues to go a little bit towards the topic we're going to talk about. We have also huge alcohol problems and drug abuse problems, and it's not that Europe is all fine and good. No, not at all. We have similar issues that you have, but maybe, as Neil says, we have different approach to handle these things.
I am
But you will get
fascinated.
there.
What's that?
You will get there.
Yeah, I have heard that before. I've had clients, from different parts around the world, and it's funny. I've heard that, the teenage reference, and I don't take offense to that because at all as an American, because I mean it's amazing to me when you think like what are we 1/16th of the age of other countries from 2,000, 3,000 years old. Like it's amazing to me the level of history that entails. I mean the Byzantine empires and gosh, I mean it's just it's I just can't fathom,
Yeah.
the reality that is. So Daniel, yeah, let's launch a little bit. Let me just get kind of start by getting your story and we started off with that bio. Like that's literally the bio that you have that I had. So whatever it is that you want to kind of talk about with your credentials, your history, I definitely want to get into your story a little bit if you're willing to share any of that. Who is Daniel? Mr. Daniel Gasser.
So yeah, first of all, thanks a lot for having me. Who is Daniel Gasser? A normal, regular guy, actually, trying to make a career, trying to have a good life, but somehow in early teenager years, got on the wrong path. So I started to drink at the age of 13, which is very young,
It is.
and to smoke weed, obviously too, because that's always goes hand in hand. And it all went very quickly, very sideways. At the age of 17, I started to inject heroin into my veins.
Gotcha.
Brilliant idea, you're going to say.
Maybe not.
But I could stop that at the age of 22, actually, with the help of a classic traditional therapy.
Okay.
But it didn't really stop. I just shifted things from heroin to alcohol to cocaine to weed to
Cross
all
addiction.
sort of to all sort of substances. So for me, in retrospect, in you know what I
Retrospect.
mean. Yes, thanks.
In retrospect. That's a big
In
word.
retrospect, that therapy didn't work actually, because
Mhm.
if it had, I wouldn't have to take other substances, and that went on and on and on for the next 30 years or so. And I was asked myself, why is it possible to stop something really bad as heroin that can actually kill you very quickly? And that's something that is widely accepted by society and everybody does it. And you can't get rid of it. And I found out that that is one of the major reasons why it's such a huge problem to get rid of it, because it's so widely accepted by society. If you see,
Okay. The alcohol you speak of?
yeah, if you see a heroin junkie or a crack junkie or something laying in the streets, you don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be that guy. So it makes it's like a threshold. You don't want to step over that threshold.
Well, it's interesting
But
that you say that because that's actually one of the things that I've wondered about. In my circles in the substance abuse treatment fields, you'll hear people say that nicotine actually is one of the most addictive substances, and I've always questioned that because one, I don't know or understand or think that we have a great plan to measure the level of addictive nature to a particular substance. And what I always thought was that, well, cigarettes, particularly when I grew up in the 80s, it's different now, but when I grew up in the 80s, it was all over the place. It was culturally supported, expected, encouraged almost. And so we've dealt with that now. Now it's just not. Like I got a 20-year-old and a 17-year-old, and they think smoking's like the worst thing since ever. And
yeah,
I would submit to you, it's probably not as hard to stop smoking now as it kind of used to be for exactly the reason that you point out. So that's interesting. See, I told you we'll agree, Daniel, on some things, man.
yeah, we agree on that. I think personally, giving up smoking was very easy.
Yeah.
With the same method I'm teaching now the guys for alcohol. It's just it's a question of mindset. And did you know that on a from a medical point of view, after 24 hours, all the nicotine is gone from your body.
Right.
So your
Yep.
body has healed in 24 hours, which is not the case with alcohol, with strong alcoholism, which is not the case with heroin, which is not the case with any strong drug, you know. And but nicotine is so, um, as you say, it's one part is society, and the other part is it's highly addictive at the moment. I think it keeps you on the toes all the time, but it goes away so quickly, the effect, that you need another one so quickly. It's like crack for me. It's the same thing as crack.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
So let me get back to the story. So you start when you're 13 drinking, you get into the heroin deal. It sounds like you got off of heroin and whatnot, in your early 20s. But then for, you said like 30 more years, you're involved in the alcohol use pretty intently and regularly. Is that right?
yeah, that's right.
And and you said you had some traditional therapies. What was the traditional therapies component? Just
The For
psychotherapy
heroin,
101 or rehabs or what?
rehab. For
Rehab.
heroin, it
So
was classic rehab with group sessions, with one-on-one sessions, with
yeah, and you go to the
closing the
facility and you stay there 24/7
yeah,
and yeah,
closing
30-day
Daniel
program.
away for a while and stuff.
They put him away for a minute.
Yeah,
No
they
white
put him
coats and
away.
crazy things like that happen though, but there's a lot of fear about that. And so you've been sober now, I think. Is that correct? There's no alcohol, no weed, pot, pills, heroin, nothing. Is that
No,
full sober?
no, it's not part of my universe anymore.
Yeah, yeah. And that's been for 4 years.
Alcohol has been for 4 years now, and let me just shut down this thing. Okay. Um, yeah, alcohol has been for 4 years. No, 3 years or something. Yeah, I don't keep track.
Yep,
We
yep.
can we can talk about counting days after if you want.
Well, there's a lot of
And
things to get to, yeah.
yeah, and smoking, it's like 5 years or so. Weed, the same thing. And I stopped all that with the same method.
Okay.
So yeah, I have alcohol in my house. If you come see me in Switzerland, you can have your beer if you like a beer. Everything is here, but it's not attractive to me anymore. Not at
Right.
all.
Right.
And that's what I call freedom, real freedom, because I
It
don't I,
is
I
an
don't have
amazing
to
thing.
stay away from it, kind of.
Yeah, and that's what this show really kind of is a little bit about, right? Like, um, I've made this confession on the show before, uh, but I feel bad about it now. But for anybody, that, by the way, that might be listening to the show, we'll have show notes and ways to get up with Daniel, myself, different treatment resources, all the things, because, I thought it was a little funny and a little corny when I was a young clinician that somebody was talking about my supervisor and a program director were talking about having a candle in the window for all those that are out there that are still using and lost really. And shame on me. I shouldn't have made fun of that in my head because, man, what a reality this is that we're talking about. And the reality is that there are so many people that are just ensnared and trapped and grabbed by addiction. And people that don't have addiction just generally they don't have an understanding of like how people can continue doing something that's destroying them. And we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight, I think. But give me the rundown, if you will, Daniel, maybe on you said before the mics came on you don't like calling it coaching, but you have a method. What's the basics there? What do you want to say about that? Because that's intriguing,
So
I'm sure, to people to hear, right?
I have to say it's not my method. I didn't
Okay,
invent it. I put that things together from different books, from different things that helped me.
gotcha.
And I figured if it helped me, it's worth put something together. And as people are not reading books these days anymore,
I know, right?
yeah,
I'm an author.
me
That
too.
hurts.
Me too. Yeah. And that so I put together this video training, this video program, and it consists basically. I call it a positive brainwash. It consists of changing the point of view on alcohol, on society, how alcohol is perceived in society, how it's still widely accepted, but also, of course, what it's actually doing to you, and not like lecturing people. You shouldn't do that. That's really bad for you.
Mm.
Nobody listens to that. You cannot tell a grown up man that's bad for you. We're men. We don't listen to these kind of things,
Definitely can't
right?
tell a grown woman what to do neither. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, but I'm working with men, so
Well,
yeah, I
I
can
work with
I
both.
can't tell my queen either what to do. So
Yeah, I work with both and I live with one, right?
yeah. So first of all, I try to tell the people that it's not their fault,
Mhm.
because there's something really, really weird going on in society, that if you're a casual drinker, and so-called casual drinker, which makes me smile all the time,
Does it?
there is no problem, because 90% of the people are doing it.
Yeah.
But then suddenly some kind of miracle happening and you're an incurably ill alcoholic. How the hell does that happen? Overnight, over the years? And where's the threshold? Where does people or society decide that I'm a casual drinker and you're a freaking alcoholic? And so it's a trap. To answer your previous question, every addiction is a trap. You step into that trap because you don't know at first. And once you realize, it's too late. You're in the trap. And what happens medically, I think you know better than me, but what happens medically, that especially with alcohol, because it's very slow. It's slow going.
Terribly slow.
Yeah, it keeps you trapped, but in a very weird and slow way. So you drink, and what your body does, it makes you throw up. That's a message from the body telling you, hey, dude, that's not good for us. Don't do
Yeah.
that anymore, please.
Expel immediately and
Yeah,
violently.
get that shit out of here, you know?
Yeah.
And then you continue to do it, and we have to acquire that taste. That's one part of my method too, to open your eyes that if you have to acquire a taste, it's probably not good for you.
Pepsi's
So
pretty good, though.
Sorry?
Diet Pepsi.
Pretty good with all that phosphoric shit in it.
Yeah, there is that, yes.
It destroys your bones and it
Yeah, we're
destroys your
born and
lungs.
we drink milk naturally and water naturally, and then we add all these other things that,
Yeah,
coffee and caffeine and,
yeah.
yeah.
However, so you continue to drink it, then your body gives you the message like hangover. That's again a message. Hey, listen, this is not good. Please, would you please stop that? And then if you continue to do it, your body thinks that you have no choice. So he starts building up a resistance. Tolerance, resistance, like with any poison. If you take a little bit of arsenic every day, your body starts to build up a resistance, a tolerance, until the day that it's just too much. And your liver is going to collapse and your kidney is going to collapse. And I'm not a doctor, but this is what happens. So, and this is the trap. This is how this trap works. So on one side, you have society telling you that's perfectly normal to have a drink every day. And then you have your body on the other side trying to protect you, because the only job our body has is to keep us alive as long as possible, as healthy as possible. Period. That's its job. And it does an amazing job, actually. But we are so stupid and we're sabotaging it all the time with Diet Pepsi, for example. Ugh. Come on,
That's
man.
good stuff.
No, we have to discuss that another time. This is really bad for you.
Okay.
This is poison.
Well, I'm drinking green tea. That's better for me, right?
That's cool. I'm drinking tap water. That's even better. So
probably so.
And that's the thing. I try to open their eyes on it.
Yeah, it sounds like you're talking about kind of behavioral methods, looking at your behavior, decision making, cognitively, reframing. You could say forms of cognitive behavioral therapy. That's our this is some of our clinical world, and you're kind of going at it, with a social view and redesigning your behavior and redesigning your thoughts and reframing your whole perspective and persona around alcohol and or drug. Is that I mean,
Yeah.
I know that's an oversimplification,
Yeah.
but
No, that's more or less it. But a major part I really want to stress on that is I'm trying to take the blame away.
yeah, the shame and the guilt are
Yes.
horrible components of addiction.
Yes, it's horrible components of every aspect of life, but
Yeah.
especially in addiction. And once that thing is away, we can start to work on the question comes then most of the time, not with every man, what's the trigger? Why? Why the hell are you drinking? And so a good example was this IT entrepreneur, self-made multimillionaire, everything, but drinking like a cow, as we say in German. You know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and we found out that he started to drink as a teenager because he was afraid of talking to girls. Too shy.
Right.
Stupid and simple reason. We all know that. Talking to a girl for the first time in your life, it's like,
Scary.
scary. So to lose his inhibitions a little bit, he started to drink. And there you go, 40 years after, he's like, oh, that's it. And that was a big breakthrough for him. And the other part was his wordings he's using. He always said, like, I have to stop. I really should stop. I shall not drink, etc., etc. And I got him to change his wordings into, I do not drink, period. So it sounds simple, but actually it is very simple. And I think we have to, and I jump ahead a little bit, I know you can stop me anytime. I think we have to go away from that disease thinking as an addiction.
Okay.
Because I don't think it's a disease. That's a very well made up excuse. You're gonna kill me. He's gonna.
No, I'm not gonna kill you, but I disagree.
He's gonna cut my.
We'll get going here in a little bit. I don't know if I said it yet or not. I think I did earlier. He in some of your videos, you said there's that part of the 95% of the professionals you talk to will tell you these things and those things, and it's just I think you actually said like it's all wrong, and I was like, oh, I got to talk to this guy. It's gonna be fun because I'm one of those 95ers. But as I said, I think that there's a lot of things that we won't disagree on actually as we go through some of those things. And the disease model is another one of those that we may end up disagreeing on that to a certain extent, but I think there's some understandings about that. But so Daniel, do you have any? I mean, I know it's early. You've been doing this for a few years and whatnot, and working with other addicts and things. Do you have any documented stuff, or do you? I'm a clinician, so I hate research. I'm not that kind of a guy keeping track of data and statistics. I love those researchers. They do it all for me, and then I can learn from it. It's wonderful, right? But still, I'm wondering in your practice, what kind of relapse rates you have, or what sort of documented understanding that you have with people. And again, I know it's really early in your work, but
I don't keep track.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
do
you have a sense at all, though?
Sorry.
Do you have a sense at all about that, though? Like, a year later, this guy came back.
To be frank, I think it's 50-50.
Yeah, 50-50, right.
I think so. Because the guys that I have contact with, because I keep contact with them.
Gotcha.
They either say, yeah, we should have a talk. And then I know, ooh, it's not really working.
Yeah.
Or they say, yeah, Daniel, everything is cool. I love you. I'm so grateful. It's awesome. It's my life has changed and yada, 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 and all that stuff.
Gotcha.
And so, but how would you keep track? It's very difficult because I don't want to be the guy that holds an Excel sheet for the guys I'm helping. Because
yeah, like I said, that's why I love the researchers, because they do track 20-year longitudinal studies and do different factors to kind of understand CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, versus 12-step therapy models versus motivational and interviewing. There's different things. I mean, so those guys do that, but I wanted to have a sense, because I have a sense as well. There are a lot of people that I work with that do relapse. I mean, relapse is a big part of the addiction problem, and it always has. the
Yeah,
recidivism rates are terrible.
yeah. I
And,
tried.
yeah,
I tried so many things myself. I even went
right.
to
You're
a.
right,
I even went to AA meetings,
right.
which I was like, I'm on the wrong planet here. This can't be it for me. I mean, this association, don't get me wrong, they help a lot of people getting away from it. But in my opinion, they just put them in another dependency. But that's my opinion. So I tried a lot of things. I tried, I don't know if you have that in the States, we have that Blue Cross organization.
Sure. Well, do we? What do you mean? Maybe not.
It's anti-alcoholics, but they're quite aggressive.
The
So
Anti-Alcoholics Anonymous or something?
no, it's another association, but they don't want to hear about alcohol. You
Okay.
know, if you're now be my guest in my house and you have your beer because you like your beer, and I have my glass of water, this would be absolute no go,
Yeah.
because me as a former drunk, I cannot sit at a table with someone who has a beer and enjoying it, and I'm still talking to you. No freaking way.
Says
So
Blue Cross.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe I'm doing that a little bit wrong, but I don't care, because this is all for me. This is all dinosaur thinking.
Yeah.
And so I tried a lot of things, and this kind of method worked for me, and this kind of method works for a lot of guys I helped. So I don't need any documentary. I know this shit works. If you apply the tools I'm giving you, it works.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, we'll talk about AA here in a little bit, and either today or the next week, next session. AA, I've heard it quoted saying, it is what works best for most, and I have heard that, and I have seen that. But truthfully, whatever, somewhere, some way, somebody finds a way to be sober, that, hey, hats off, fantastic, because there really isn't any one way for one person. AA is not for everybody. There are other things that are out there. However, there's a really important part, and I'm just listening to you talk. I think that we're going to agree on this, but I'm not sure where you stand with people that have identified a problem with alcohol. Call it addiction or not. Which, by the way, do you call it addiction or no?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, okay. So, when you've identified addiction in your life, um, do you agree or disagree that sobriety is the only answer that we know of to be safe from the continued affliction that addiction creates in somebody's life?
Generally speaking, I'd say yes.
Yeah,
I'd say
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
But
Because I couldn't be more clear about this, and it scares me to death because there are programs that are out there that have the primary goal of returning to normal use. And what we see, yeah, right? The smile. I'm curious what the laugh is, because what we see is that that's primarily what is the fact with addiction is common use is not seems to be possible for people that enter into or have addiction, right? So does that seem in line with the way you see it or feel?
I go even a step further,
Okay.
Chris. I'd say there is no normal use of alcohol.
Okay.
There are different states of addiction. Fact is, and I'm sure you agree with that, alcohol is a highly addictive substance. Physically, highly addictive. The day you touch alcohol and you repeat that for a short while of time, your body is building up a resistance, a tolerance, and that's the definition of physically being addicted to something. Okay? So I think, some people gonna hate me out there. I think
That's
90%,
okay.
90% of all Western grown-ups are addicted to alcohol, period.
Okay. Yeah, I think
So
the go ahead.
to answer your question, I think I agree with you. There is no returning to quote normal using of a substance. You cannot use a poison normally. How would you do that? How would that work? let's say you're addicted to arsenic. It's stupid, but you know what I mean. You wouldn't, once you got off that poison, you wouldn't want to return to use poison. Why would you do that?
So we've made a major change in Western medicine. If you've heard of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, the DSM, you've ever heard of that?
No.
Okay, it's a big book. It's the purple book right there. Actually, I'm pointing to it on my screen. You have to go to the YouTube version if you got the audio version of that. That sucker right there has got every single diagnosis in the mental health and substance abuse field, and we have to learn all about it and whatnot. And they made a major change when we brought the 5 out from the 4 revised DSM 4R. We used to, and I still do, way more buy into this reality that you've got a continuum of everybody that uses substances. And the continuum starts, if you've ever had it, with social use. And that's largely defined by, no major problems in your life that have really occurred from your relationship with alcohol. And then you move into abuse. And that is characterized by some sort of problems have really begun to occur, but then you continue to use given despite those problems. But then there's addiction. And we used to diagnose alcohol abuse and then alcohol dependence is what we used to call it, but it's addiction. The words are interchangeable. And then you have mild, moderate, and severe. And the addiction diagnosis per se has a progressive nature. So addiction progresses through the different stages of use. And the major differential between people that have abuse issues and people that have addiction is characterized by a lot of things, but the simplest thing is a lack of control. So a lack of control is demonstrated. And the easiest way I've been able to, over the years, help people understand, what that looks like is a unpredictability, right? Like you just don't know when your bio that we read at the top there is going to happen, or you're going to have those 2, 3, 5 beers and go home to your wife after you have dinner with your friends. It's unpredictable when that's going to happen, and that's an easy way to kind of understand the loss of control. So, but now we've switched that all up. We've taken that and putting that aside. Fancy people think they got cool research and stuff, and they've just said now we're just going to call it all a substance use disorder, and that's mild, moderate, and severe still. So it's still a continuum. But they have, and I hate this, but they have made a distinction different from alcohol or drug, weed, pot, whatever, abuse versus addiction. They've just lumped the abuse into the addiction realm and put it all in the same continuum. And I contend that there is a very different reality because we know about 10 to 15% of populations really around the world, I think, but certainly in the States, tend to have addiction, 10 to 15%. So it's interesting. I think we're saying similar things, but there's a difference in that there are people that are social users likely never have addiction, abusing people, but they're never likely to having addiction. It's about 10 to 15% that we can identify with that classification. Does that make sense? Does that make you mad?
No, that makes sense. That makes actually the two sides of it. So it makes sense of the addiction or abuse. Let's not jump on terms here. Of being a progressive thing.
Yeah.
Totally agree on that.
Yeah, starts out small, gets bigger.
Yeah,
that's what that characteristic.
Some physical aspects, but also some mental aspects.
Correct.
But
and by the way, it doesn't go in reverse. It always gets worse with addiction.
Yeah. But now let's take an example. Let's take the businessman, has a family, children, and he has his drink every day. Let's say that's a glass of wine. Okay?
Sure.
And you ask him to not have his glass of wine for a week. Now, some people, they say, okay, fine.
Yep.
And after that week, you ask them, how was your week? Did you think about having that glass? Did you think about, oh no, I told Daniel that I won't? And if you have that thought, for me, in my opinion, you're addicted.
Could be. Yeah, could be.
You have that problem already because you have to discipline yourself because you made a deal with Daniel or with Chris to not have that glass of wine every evening for a week or for 3 days or whatever. So if you have that thought, for me, you're on the good road to addiction.
It
I don't
could
say,
indicate something that we call preoccupation. That is a symptom of addiction. Thoughts
yeah,
about your next drink and an overwhelming sense of thinking about it and planning for it and sort of wrapping your day. Or you're right.
exactly. It's a substitute.
Yeah, preoccupation is a symptom.
Yeah, and because people think, for example, let's have that evening drink again, that alcohol is actually relaxing them, which is completely wrong. I like that analogy with the fire alarm. You have a fire alarm going on, and you take the battery out, you call the firefighters, say everything is fine, fire is under control. But you just shut down the alarm, which is stress. All right? So if you drink to cope with stress, all you do is shutting down the alarm. But the stress is still here. And the reason for stress is still here. So, but it's very difficult to say what is actually the problem. Is the substance or the abuse of the substance the problem? Or is the problem in life that's leading to the abuse? And I think it gets, with the years, it gets mixed up. So initially you have a trigger, you have kind of an issue. For me, it was, I sensed very early in my life, as a 9-year-old already, that something is really going very, very wrong on this planet, in our society. So I told my parents, and what you gonna tell a 9-year-old? Yeah, you're right, we're pretty much screwed up. No, you don't gonna tell that to your 9-year-old, right?
Right.
You
Right.
tell him, yeah, listen, no, everything is fine. But that, I don't blame my parents for having done that. I would have done the same if I had a child. But that led for me to a disruption, because I knew what I felt deep inside me. And everybody told me, no, you're wrong. Everything is fine. Now I know I was perfectly right with
Yeah.
my intuition. But that led to such a disruption that I thought I'm completely wrong. Everything is wrong with me.
Right.
And if back then I would have had the right people to talk to, I probably would never have abused of anything. Because if even only someone would showed up to me and said, yeah, you're actually pretty right. You know, the planet is pretty screwed up. We have a lot of problems. And I don't know if we're going to solve them. That would have been okay, right? It's screwed, but I'm not wrong, at least. I sense that, right? But that's my story. So, but then you start drinking. I started drinking, and I started drinking a lot. Only beer and stuff like that, but a lot to cover that fire alarm, to cover that feeling of being wrong. And so it's I think it starts with a trigger, as I call it, with a reason, but then as you don't solve the problem by addiction, obviously, it gets mixed up with the problems coming from the addiction to your initial problem,
Which is life and
and
stress.
yeah, and that's a tricky one. So
It is tricky. So here's what I want to do. I'm aware of the time. The second part I want to get to issues in recovery, and we'll go back and forth with some of the different things. What I want to try to do is hone us in, because we got a lot to get to with the disease model, and I want to take a deep dive on that and end today with that. And there's some reading that I want to do and some stuff that I want to get to. So let me frame us into there with that and see, what you feel, Daniel, about where addiction comes from, because I hear you talking about that already. And the way that I look at this is as an overview of everything in mental health: depression, anxiety, OCD, PTSD, all these different things, right? There's a tale of two tapes. Okay. On the one side, you have biological realities, genetic traits, the amygdala, the limbic system, exercise, nutrition, all the body, the biological realities drive how it is that we feel. But then on the other side, you have social and emotional realities. So primary life experiences, primary life's events and the daily grind and the stress, that also drives how it is that we feel. So there's this combining mix, and I hear you talking about that. But if we look at addiction, I would maintain that it seems to me for the 10 to 15% that this social and emotional stuff gets created, also contributes to the problems and whatnot. But that, and this gets to the disease model that really, like, and I tell my clients this all the time, and it takes the shame and guilt away, by the way, because they didn't do anything wrong. They're not a bad person. All those stigmas and stereotypes, I'm all about blowing those up. Part of the reason for this platform through a therapist's eyes, but that there is a genetic reality that basically babies already are alcoholics or not. We just don't know if they are or not until they begin and progress with their relationship with alcohol. So it's kind of really on that biological side. Statistically, genetics make a big difference in our assessment. We always ask about family genetics, uncles, aunts, grandparents, siblings. Like that helps us to determine if addiction is there or not. Doesn't mean it is if you have a granddaddy or a dad, but the percentages genetically are very clear and very there. So do you think that's the social side, this genetic biological side? Like where do you stand with that?
Um, to take that first, if it takes away the blame, fine.
Yeah, sure.
Everything is cool if
Yeah,
it
you
takes
want that
away
shame
that.
and guilt gone,
Yeah,
don't you?
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's crap.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, Newer researches on genetics has shown that actually 10% of our genetics is given, and the rest we have influence of that. We
Hmm.
have influence on our genetics. So if your father is a diabetic, it doesn't mean that you have to be a diabetic too. Bad example, I know, because I have no clue about all these things. But are you familiar with the work of Dr. Dispenza?
I am not.
Dr. Joe Dispenza? Go have a look what he has to say. He's a neuroscientist, and he has a whole bunch of talking about this genetic things and placebo things also. I personally think, and really this is my opinion, I think that the whole disease thing, it's a big excuse, because from society, let's take the alcohol example, they can say, okay, he's an alcoholic, he's ill, poor little thing. And the guy being ill, quote, can say the same. Oh, I'm ill. I'm a poor little thing. And that's why I think it's on one side, it's an excuse. On the other side, it's a money machine. Oh, people gonna hate me for this again.
Money machine. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wonder, Daniel, because I see it as a little bit of a reality, and it is a reality that does take away the guilt and the shame. I mean, this is not like you're a loser person, you're stupid, you're not able to make good decisions. There's a
Yes, you
reality
are.
with
Yes, you
with
fucking are stupid.
predisposition.
No,
It's
Chris, you
what's
are
that?
stupid. You are stupid. You take the wrong decisions. That stupid Daniel, just because he thinks he's wrong on the planet, he starts drinking. What stupid asshole? Of course you're stupid. Because other people having similar problems, taking other decisions as a teenager, they don't start to drink. So
So
it's, of course, part of it is taking stupid decisions. But that's not the problem, because everybody, oh, my mic fell off.
we still hear you.
all the 7 billion people take stupid decisions all the time. So that's not the problem, but that can't be the excuse.
Well, yeah. There's when you look at the disease model, I prepared and looked at the definition. It's said as a disorder of structure or function in the human, animal, plant, or human, especially one that produces significant signs or symptoms, or that affects specific location and is not simply a direct result of physical injury. So basically, these deviations and there's symptoms that we look for that we're identifying. Signs and symptoms are really all that we're looking for at classifications. Nothing weird about that. You have signs and symptoms of diabetes. You have signs and symptoms of heart disease. You have signs and symptoms of all these types of stuff. And with addiction, check out this list, right? Loss of control, emotional relief use, the concept of progression we talked about, a concept of tolerance that we talked about. There's actually something called gulping. I won't spend time. An actual experience of blackouts, which is very abnormal in the experience of a typical drinker. Problems in life associated to use and continue using. Mentioned that with abuse. Increased frequency, preoccupation, we talked a little bit about. Guilt associated to the use, avoidance and talking about the issue, hiding beverages. I always think that's, if you're hiding a beverage, to me, that's a big one. It's kind of like, what are we hiding? Lying about use, loss of other interests in life, legal or other social issues, and then physical dependence, actually with withdrawal symptoms, and then periods of abstinence that are sort of forced by the user. So those are like, and then the DSM goes specific on some of those things, but those are like specific things that we're looking for. And the way that I work with this is that, like, if you have one or two of these flags, these are all red flags. It doesn't mean that you have addiction. But when we begin having, 2, 3, 5 of these, it's kind of like, wow. But when you got 6, 7, 8, 9 of these, it's like, dude, this is a raging, severe issue. And because we don't have a blood test, we don't have anything that we can say you got COVID, right? Because we can look at the little COVID pointy things on the molecule, and we just don't have anything like that really for all of mental health, my whole industry. What we have is we can look at signs and symptoms, and we can say, oh, okay, well, that sounds like enough signs of depression that we can say your body has depression, right? And by the way, it went away. It lasts about 2 weeks to 3 months. That's a depression episode. We know what that looks like. OCD. We all have anxiety, but we have signs of OCD. Touch doorknobs, or you have compulsive thoughts. You have, a ritualistic behavior, right? We have signs, and when we have enough symptoms of that, we can call that sort of the part of the classification system. And that's no different with addiction. So it is tricky that way. And there seems to be some understandings that we're having genetically about all of these things. Bipolar, schizophrenia. The body at birth does have a lot of predisposed reality with all of these things, including addiction. Now, I'll add, and then I'll see what you got to think. When you say we have domain over our own bodies, that we can get healthy, thank goodness we've learned about brain plasticity, right? That's a fancy way of saying we used to think once you kill brain cells, they're dead. You can't get any more. Now we know there is amazing regenerative ability of our bodies. They're amazing creations. So we do have some domain over our bodies and what happens, but there's predispositions, and there's a reason why we've got 10, 15%. I mean, that number has held very, very sound. Those are some of the things we talk about with, this disease model, if you will.
So
I know that's a lot.
No, but it's okay. So maybe we should define the term disease.
Yeah, oh yeah. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about that.
Yeah, because for me, a disease is that I go to a doctor, he diagnoses it, he gives me some pill. I'm simplifying it a lot, but it should be diagnostic. It should be a diagnostic. And the way you explain it to me, there is clearly.
Yeah, they're very specific.
To diagnose an addiction or an abuse, there is a list of symptoms. If I have a few of them, ding dong, alarm clock.
Yeah.
But on a more philosophic way of thinking, I think it's dangerous to call it a disease because of the reasons I stated before, because of the excuse part of it. It's not my fault if I have a disease, so I can do nothing about it. Right?
Yeah, no, we don't buy that. Not in our field, not in the clinician treatment field, because there is something you can do about it. Same thing with depression, same thing with OCD. There's treatments that we manage, cognitive behavioral therapy, therapies. There are some pills for some things.
Okay.
Seem to love the idea of taking pills to treat things. I don't know why we love that, but we love that. We're trying to manipulate the body and the structures with neurotransmitters and dopamine levels and norepinephrine and the limbic system and all that stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot there, but we're trying to, it isn't just I can't do anything about it. Like,
Yeah.
no, wait a minute.
But yeah, so maybe I have to review that. But in my world, when people come to me and say, "Yeah, I'm ill," I tend to say, "No, you're not. You took some
Absolutely.
stupid,
Yeah, absolutely.
decisions, and that led to the point that you're here now, sitting with me, and we can solve that." What I'm against is that alcoholism is still called an incurable illness.
Yeah, that's the rub, and that's a bit of the trouble spot.
And I think, what? I'm the living example that's not true.
Well, but Daniel, the thing where we differ with that is it's so scary to me that people will work with alcoholism and return to some sanity of life as you have, and then move forward to think that they can continue or revert back. And this time I'll control the drinking. Right.
Mhm.
Now, you kind of qualified that a little differently, saying, yeah, drinking's kind of bad for everybody. I would submit it's really not. 90% of people will drink alcohol, do all the time, and never really have any problems develop up in their life. I'm one of them. Right.
Okay.
But,
Do you drink more than 10 years ago?
uh, oh, I'm sure. Heck, I was in college way too long ago than that. Yeah.
No, but tell me, do you
Yeah.
drink more?
Well, what's that?
Do you drink more than 10 years before? 10
Oh,
years
sure.
ago?
Yeah, when I was in my 20s, absolutely. Like I said, I drank in college a good bit, I'm sure, and that was way more than 10 years. That's what I'm trying to joke with.
No,
It's
no,
because
no.
it's true.
So maybe it's a language problem. When you look at the quantity you're drinking now, is it more than 10 years ago? Or is it the same, or is it less?
I was probably about the same about 10 years ago, but when I was in college and a younger man, I would
Was
drink
more.
way, more. Yeah.
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 Okay. Because a lot of people that drink slowly but surely more and more and more and more and more, and they never have a problem in their life, right?
Well, there's a term that drives me nuts, and there's a term called functional alcoholism, and it there is no such thing as functional alcoholic. That
Yeah,
drives me
there
nuts
is.
because you can have a functional life, basically. And we did a show on that. Neil reminded here at the end. We'll have it on the show notes, but I want you to say it out loud. The episodes that we did on that, I'm reminded because we did a show on functional alcoholism, and I think the title was "Not So Functional Alcoholic." It's like that's just a retarded word in my mind. It's a weird word.
I think it's quite correct. I
Yeah.
was a functional drinker for over 30 years.
Right. Right.
And what I understand under functional drinking is that you have your life, you have your career, you have your
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
Everything is fine, quote, but deep inside it's not.
It
And you
really
drink more
isn't.
and
And
more and more and more until the day you're not a functional drinker anymore because something happened, like car accidents or fight with
exactly.
police or
Well,
whatever.
a perfect example of that is a very functional person that I was working with, and we were identifying, trying to figure out, does this addiction apply to you or not? And that was kind of like, in my mind, yeah, probably. But he was working with it. And anyway, he was a really functional person, pretty high level, professional in the industry. But then he came home, driving home drunk, and puked all over himself and had to walk into the home, and for him, that was his reconciliation moment of like, wow, this really is more of an issue in my life than it is for most others, and began to really break down. There's another concept called denial to really get aware of like this relationship with alcohol is different for me than
Yeah,
it is for most others,
yeah.
and that was an important reconciliation for him, and he got sober. But the trouble is, and this is where it does suck for addiction, we don't know of anybody that really can demonstrate a return to average drinking levels, such as I kind of described, right? Like,
But that's what's not getting into my brain. Why would someone that has discovered that he's poisoning himself
oh yeah,
over years, why what's that stupid idea of wanting to return? It's like if I wanted to return to, let's say, one shot of heroin a month.
Right.
That's completely stupid.
Right.
Because
It's
I got away of that
dangerous.
deadly poison. Why would I try it? On the other hand, I got away from nicotine too. But from time to others, I enjoy smoking a cigar. You know, the big fat Cuban ones. I
Yes,
love
they're
them.
pretty good.
And they're pretty good. But I don't get addicted to them,
Right.
strangely. Because one reason there's a lot less of nicotine in these things. You don't pull it in that much. It's not industrially added nicotine like in the cigarettes. But still, so there, I think there are substances you can return to normal use, like a cigar as a former smoker, right? Some smokers or some former smokers might not be able to return.
And I think
But
therein lies a little bit of the difference with the genetic reality that bodies operate at about 10 to 15% of us. Something's different in our bodies, right?
so,
Because there are a lot of people that develop more problems, abuse, if you will, that they get their stress and life together and they can revert back to social uses, which is more, normal levels. But once we're in the addiction identification, yeah, you're kind of screwed for life, I guess, because you really cannot return and go back down, the line of progression. It rolled
but
downhill. You can't.
why would you do that again, Chris?
Well,
Why would one do that?
people have told me all the time, I mean, for all sorts of reasons. I think every alcoholic kind of wants to be able to be a controlled user. I have people in my practice all the time saying, why can I do this? And I say, I don't know why you can't. Biologically, there's a reality here, though. We have not seen success with addiction returning back to that. They want to be like everybody else, right? That seems to be able to drink with no problem. And they get sucked into that. This idea that I don't really have addiction. I mean, it's crazy because I've seen people that are 20 years sober and they're talking into my office, they relapsed. And in a relatively short period of time, I'm talking weeks to months, maybe a year, but pretty quickly in their life, boom, they are way beyond where they even were when they left off, which is another danger about progression. It's as though they never stopped drinking and it continued to get worse and worse. And they were 20 years sober.
You know
It's
why?
like, well, I don't think we
Be-
really can explain that one, but what do you
I
think?
can. I think I can. They didn't solve it. They didn't understand it. They didn't change their point of view. You can pour
Mhm.
beer over me. Beer was my favorite drink.
Yeah.
You can force me. I would never relapse. Let me tell you a little story. I was cooking
Okay, go with
and
this story, and then Neil, if you got those shows, I want to say them out loud at the end here, and then we'll go to our next episode.
so I was cooking and I had this recipe and it was wine to pour over the sauce, right?
Right?
And I had no wine, but I had beer. It was like a few months ago. So I took a beer from the cellar and I opened it, and that,
Oh, the
you
sound.
know, I was
Yes.
like, oh.
It's a
And
trigger
I got,
sometimes.
yeah, and I got frightened.
Right.
And I said, oh, fuck.
Right.
And then I said, okay, man, you're coaching other men.
Yeah.
You're a big mouth, cheeky guy going all over social media that you have found the method that everything is fine. So now
Yeah.
you're gonna have a sip of this beer.
Yeah.
And I can tell you my heartbeat was like really high because what if I relapse?
Right.
What if my wife's gonna quit because she doesn't do that twice in life, you know?
Right.
She stood by me 20 years, but not once more.
Right.
So I took the beer and put it to my mouth, and then I smelled it.
Yep.
And I was like a child when you give him alcohol.
Right.
natural reaction is like, ugh.
Mm-hmm.
And I forced myself, even after that smell, I forced myself having a zip. And I can tell you, Chris, it was awful.
Right.
It was totally, totally awful. And there I knew, yes, if you use this method correctly, you're never going to relapse ever. And that's why the reason that I can have alcohol in my house, because I'm never going to touch it anymore. It's awful. It
Yeah.
tastes awful. It sounds awful. It smells awful. Everything about it is awful. And that's why I'm telling you, people relapse, I think, it's my theory. And again, some people are going to hate me for that. I don't care. Because they don't look at it differently. They look at it the same way they did 20 years before, and they just resist for the rest of their lives. And then they're going to relapse, of course. So that's
Yeah, it's a dangerous time, and it is a little bit of a reality. The dangers of relapse. I mean, I've which if you're hearing me, Neil, by the way, let's hit that next. But you've said that a few times, and clearing up some of the myths, right? Like, um, we we don't really have to have the suggestion that you can't be around alcohol. I mean, you when you get sober and you're well, and you're stable in your sobriety. I mean, there are bartenders I worked with in therapy that are, that are alcoholics, but they're in recovery and they're tending bar. I mean, it's when you're right, when you're clear that like I have a different relationship with alcohol, I am allergic to it is another way of thinking of it. It doesn't work for me in my body, and it's not. I'm not going there again. You can have people over drinking beers. You can. I mean, I've got recovered alcoholics that make the best drinks for their wives or for their husbands than other people normally could. It's fine, right?
yeah,
It's fine.
yeah.
But now, in early recovery, we want a sober environment that is safer for people that are new to this. Now, that is a suggestion sometimes when you're trying to be sober for like the first weeks or months, right? Like that's where it becomes, you know,
Totally agree with you.
sometime a suggestion. So Neil, what are those numbers? And we'll start off with that the next episode as well, and continue this awesome conversation with Daniel Gasser. So what do you got, Neil? How many did we do on this thing anyway?
I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And there are some opiates versus alcohol, but so basically running down it, and these will be in the show notes on the website. You got 8, 25, 28, 29, 30. Are we born addicts? That's kind of, I think, a outcut that you had, I think, from one of the other shows. 64, 75, 80, 111, 156, and 168. And the not so functional alcoholic was 75.
Not so functional alcoholic 75. Yeah, we've talked about it on the show, Daniel, a good bit because it's one of our primary topics, and it's one that I carry deeply about because actually this is one that I sort of began my career with, ironically, teaching a DUI class and learning about all of the basic fundamentals of it, and I kind of stumbled into the addiction. Otherwise, I might have been like a lot of my other colleagues that just do not understand addiction. Like I said, getting better, but it used to be like I work with drug and alcohol addictions and I don't do mental health. I work with mental health, but I don't deal with drug and alcohol addictions. And it drives me nuts, man. To my colleagues, I love you out there. Thank you for doing what you're doing. But if you don't have an understanding of addiction to drug alcohol issues, like get it, get some trainings because you are looking at it and you don't know it
Yeah.
is the reality in our mental health field.
And
So
that's the peer theory, right? Because that's why people are coming to me because they're sick of walking in the office of their doctor and say, "Oh, you're an alcoholic. You have a
uh
problem."
yeah.
You know.
Yeah,
So they're
it is.
coming to a guy
It's
like
become
me.
so prominent that like people, yeah, it's like, listen, this is only about 10 to 15% of our population. It's not 40% of our population. Yeah, sorry. I get excited
Yeah,
about that.
but but to that I have to say, maybe by definition or by your definition or by the professional definition of alcoholism or whatever you call it, it's 10 to 15%. But alcohol is causing so much problems in society that it can't be that only 10 to 15% have a problem with it.
Oh,
We
there's a
saw
lot
that,
more that abuse substance. Yes.
yeah, we saw that during the lockdowns of COVID,
Oh
right?
yes. Oh yes. Yes.
Binge drinking,
Yeah.
domestic violence, child abuse, all that horrible stuff. And did you know that sales of alcohol has gone up of over 300%?
Oh, it's raging. Yeah, it's raging.
So maybe this 10 to 15% have an actual problem of being addicted, but that substance causes so many problems. We should just ban it from society once
Man,
and
he's
for
he's
all,
going back to
really.
prohibition, Neil.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
You know, these guys were actually had a good idea.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
They
listen, we
just
got
they
to get out
just
of here
did it
today, but
wrong.
we're going to be spending a whole nother episode on the different issues in alcohol addiction and recovery and what those issues are, because there's a lot of myths about this, guys. There's a lot of stereotypes. There's a lot of things, and we're endeavoring to figure this thing out together, Daniel and I. So I really want you to come back next week because, man, there's so much to cover with this that we have that are controversial. Daniel, I'm glad you're talking with us, and I'm glad you ain't got mad at me yet, by the way, man.
Likewise, Chris. Thank you for having me.
All right,
So
we're gonna see.
before we go to the next episode, what's the best way for people to reach you, Daniel? Like, what's
Oh, thank you for that, Neil. Yeah.
So you can go to quitthebottle.com, plain and simple. You can reach me on LinkedIn. I stopped using Facebook. And there is just Daniel Gasser, Switzerland. Yeah, but I think over quitthebottle.com it's the easiest way to go.
Thank you, Neil, for saving me there, brother. Would have had to put an addition on the beginning of this show or something for all of that, and we'll do that at the beginning of next show
And
as
just
well.
to say, if you go to quitthebottle.com, of course, I'm selling these coaching packages there. Don't buy them. Just write an email to daniel@quitthebottle.com and we have a chat first. I'm not the coach making a lot of money. I'm not a needy coach. I have my business running. I'm good.
Yeah.
So just write me an email on daniel@quitthebottle.com and we have a conversation. All right.
And Daniel, I'm really glad and thank you again for doing the work that you're doing with men and women around the world that are dealing with alcohol and drug troubles. All right, guys, we will see you all next week. Take care and be well.
Bye.